Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is Less is More Coach University on air, and we are talking about integrity, the integrity wheel of life. And yesterday we started with, what does the word integrity mean to you? Have you ever had consequences for doing the right thing? What do you do when you need to admit your mistakes? And then we talked about times when a situation actually tested your integrity. And today we're going to continue with that topic, integrity areas and ideas on how to grow our integrity, things that we could make a difference with when we share amongst a community of people that is built on integrity and building other people up. Because we all know that as we look at integrity, one of the things that is there to work on is, how do we support others who in turn support us in holding each other accountable for these areas of integrity? And it's one of those things for me where I've been dealing with this conversation of integrity since December of 2002, when I went through a personal training and development program that had me come nose to nose in the mirror with my word and my word in the matter. Now, did I suddenly have some kind of epiphany and breakthrough that has made me somehow better than others? Are you kidding me? Not at all. What it did was it allowed me to find this place where I started getting interested in integrity at a whole new level. And what does that look like? And how do we take every area of our life and look at it another level, another step up? And what I came up with was this idea of the integrity wheel of life. And when we talk about a wheel in old-fashioned terms, I know there's modern wheels that don't have spokes today anymore. As we talk about it from the point of reference for this conversation, this integrity wheel of which I speak is the wheel of all the spokes are different areas in our life. And each of those spokes represents a piece of our life that makes the wheel spin true. And what I mean by that, without it going thump, 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 with a broken spoke, that's what happens to the wheel. So as we look at that, our goal in this room, and one of the things that I'm committed to over the next few weeks of having this conversation, is looking at the opportunity to have conversations cross social medias. I'm currently in 5 different Facebook groups, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And my goal, and on Clubhouse, live on stage with a few people in the room, and people come and go in those rooms. And the whole idea for me is that together we get to make a difference in the world of integrity. We get to make a difference in how this area sometimes confronts people. And behind me, if you're looking at video, you'll see I have a picture, integrity wheel of life on my dry erase board. And there are things like health, finance, kids, work, a second business if we have a new business, our home, yard work, our wife, and I'm going to put or slash hubby. And each of those is a spoke. And if one of those spokes is out of integrity, it makes the wheel wobble. So the opportunity in this game is to tighten the spokes, maybe even replace a spoke if it's broke. And as we do this, there's no emotion. The idea is it's about workability. We take emotion out of this piece. Why? Because once we take emotion out, we can then deal with facts. We can deal with straight communication. We can deal with straight conversations about what is or isn't missing that would make a difference in how the wheel turns. And then each of the spokes, the other day I was chatting with somebody, with a client, and each of the spokes, I went, oh, we could take this one step further and look at each of the spokes as its own wheel and drill down a little bit to look and see, hey, is there a spoke missing or is there a spoke broken in this particular spoke in the integrity wheel of our life? Ha! So today we've got a few things to look at, and I've got 3 more questions to work on because I think this will give us some, as they would say, some fodder to work with. And yesterday we looked at 4 of them, including what does the word integrity mean to you. So for those of you that are in the replay world and are looking to see this conversation, I'm just reaching in for those of you watching, and you watch me pop off the picture here. I'm going to go to my interpretation of it from my days with Landmark Education from 2004, and they had this. This was, it's out there. If you look in Google, you'll find this. But I like this. It's kind of short. It's a little bit longer than integrity is honoring your word, not necessarily keeping it, and keeping present for yourself, and empowering conversation for possibility. So there's the short version. This one takes it a little bit further, but not to the extent, but quote unquote, not to the extent that Harvard does. Harvard Business School has a 27-page document for $7.95. You can go and get the PDF and use that to level up at a whole new degree. This one I like is on a card that is about 1.5 business cards in size, and I have it laminated. And it says, nothing hidden, being truthful and honest, doing complete work, working from an empowering context, and doing very well what you do. Doing it as it was meant to be done or better, and without cutting corners. In other words, honoring one's word, doing what you know to do, doing what you said you would do and on time, doing what others could expect you to do, even if you haven't said that you would do it, and saying when you are not doing this as soon as you realize you won't be doing it or you won't be doing it on time. Now that's the definition that I want to use to get us started in our conversation and answering these few questions. So the next 3 questions, and we'll just start with one at a time here. And luckily I have one of my musketeers in the room here to share with me and at least let me bounce off just more than this human being called Coach Les, some ideas. And I'll start it off. And the question is, tell me about a time your integrity was challenged and how you solved it. And the quickest one that I can come up with was is very simple. My integrity being challenged in my relationship, and my and this was in my relationship to my word several years ago when I did not share that I was dating somebody for about 4 months. And I was in an organization where they had a high degree of integrity. And I just chose not to share it because at that time, in that space and in that moment, I just didn't want any flack. I didn't want any heat. I didn't want any added pressure. I already had enough pressure on myself, pressure on others, pressure on the person I was dating, blah, 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 all of that. Now, make a long story short, it was a huge breach in integrity. And the way that I ended up having to solve it, because it created a massive breakdown, and this massive breakdown had a ripple effect. And that ripple effect, I still believe that there's still some of that ripple going on around. And this happened back in 2012. And for the next 5 years or 6 years, I made 18 calls to different people to restore my integrity with those people that had supported me in my journey for 10 years. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And people would tell me all the time, Les, why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. Why do you keep going back? Why do you keep making these phone calls, putting yourself through this? And the long and the short of it for me, it was a way to solve the issue of me having been irresponsible with my word and hiding something that I just didn't want to share with people. And in the hiding of that, it hurt and damaged an organization. It hurt several people. It made a havoc of certain goals and certain things that needed to be achieved. And for me, by going and having the conversations with each of those 18 people, it allowed me to be responsible and learn that when my integrity goes out, it does a lot of damage. And I'm not saying I'm any special person or any different than others, but given what I'm committed to, given what I'm up to, and what I'm creating in the world, the fact that I broke my word by not sharing something when it was a good idea to share it and be in communication had a ripple effect. And for me, in all of those different ripples over 5 years, 6 years, I got to see the difficulty that it takes in some organizations to repair some damage that is done, and then to repair relationships and be responsible for that. So that for me is probably the number one. Maybe there's others, but in the space of it, that's the number one area and example for me to share. And Selena, I would love for you, if you have an example of a time when your integrity was challenged and how you solved it. I'd love to hear if you'd like to share.
Absolutely. I can think of, thank you so very much, Coach Les, for this space and for allowing me to be a part of it. I can think of two instances right off the top of my head, but one was within my family, and then the other one was in a work environment. And I'll share with you first the one in the work environment. So many years ago, I worked for this company that was a federally funded company, and what we did was more or less job placements for the youths who were graduating from like the vocational programs. So a lot of times we would have to go out and meet with like the CEOs and CFOs, HR managers, different people in leadership within a number of companies, right? To let them know why they should really, bring these youths on board and invest in them and that type of stuff. But what happened is, because when it's federally funded, you always had all these reports and all these matrix and algorithms and all of that stuff that you have to complete. So the young lady who was the manager of the program was really gung-ho about placing them. But there was this one particular young lady I remember that she was coming down. Is almost like you get, let's say, after they have graduated from the program, you have a certain period of time to get them placed. And it was coming down kind of like to the witching hour of getting her placed. There was only a few days. So she's like, you have to find something for her, Selena. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I put through some calls to a number of the companies that I'd already established a relationship with, but realized a lot of times, if it's bigger institutions, the whole hiring process is not going to happen in a couple of days. So I got her a position with a particular company, but they weren't going to be able to place her before we had to report that this young lady was effectively placed, right? And the manager ended up going ahead and putting it in, like, she filled out the paperwork on my behalf, signed it on my behalf, and put in that the young lady was placed, all because they wanted to make their numbers. And I think the morning of, I got up and was like, okay, you know what? I need to go ahead and, keep on pushing this young lady forward in the hiring process. And when I looked, she had dropped off of my report because she's now reflecting on the report that she's been placed. And I'm like, huh? When did that happen? I certainly didn't place her. Did they find her another job? So anyway, I called the director immediately. And she said, yeah, don't worry about it, Sue. Don't worry about it. You can, I took care of it. So I was like, you took care of it? How did you take care of it? Did you place her? She's like, no. I just went ahead and I took care of it. And, once you get her placed officially, it will be fine. But I went ahead and take care of it. So immediately my antennas went up. I was like, something just isn't sitting right? So I did my investigation and I found out that that's what she had done. And I was irate. I mean, like, livid, just livid. Because the whole idea is, one thing if she had chosen to do that, then that's on her. But the whole idea that she went to the point that she assigned my name to it, oh my gosh. So I took it all the way up the ladder. At first I went back to her and let her know, listen, I know exactly what it is that you've done. And I am not an advocate. My name is not going to be attached to that. I said, so either you resolve it, and I give her a timeline. I said, I'm going to give you the next 60 to 90 to make it happen. And if you don't, then I'm going all the way up the ladder. And she did what she had to do. And I still went ahead and I wrote an email and I CC'd all the top dogs on it. And that was it, because I was like, no, you, it's one thing if I am going to tarnish my name, but I'm not going to allow you to tarnish my name. I'm not,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? No.
Oh, yeah.
So that's exactly how I handle it, Coach says.
That's awesome, Selena. Thank you. And this is one of those things, right? As people listen to this and as we share this, integrity is so personal to each individual. And yet, at the bottom of it all, there is this foundational principle that exists, and I don't care who you are. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what side of the street you come from. I don't care how much money you have or don't have. I don't care what country you're born in. I don't, I'm sorry. In this particular conversation, I do not care about the emotional circumstances of your existence on this planet. What I care about is how you exist. What I care about is what you bring to the table and how you bring it. And some will say, well, I don't know. I've never learned that. Okay, well, then here's how we make that available for you to learn. Well, I don't want to learn it. I understand that. And therefore, this area, this place, this world is off limits to you. Well, you can't do that. Yes, I can. You've chosen not to abide by the rules of the game. And if you want to participate in that game, all there is to do is to abide by those rules. Why? Because that's what that game has available. And I believe, and I'm curious to hear what you say about this, Selena, is I believe we currently live in a world where if people don't like the rules of game X, they go and complain so much that the media and the government go, game X, you have to change your rules because the population is complaining about it. And I look and I go, well, wait a minute. Game X was created with these rules. If you don't like those rules, then don't play Game X. And Game X is open to anyone. And these are the rules. And the rules, by the way, were created for safety, for moral and ethical reasons. And they have been vetted by many people in these different areas of the world, different cultures, different religions, different sexes. And the game X has been approved. And yet, there are still people that say, I want those rules changed. And the media and the hype cause the integrity of Game X to be thrown out and changed. And I look at that and go, wait a minute, this is, as I jokingly say, bass backward. If you want a different game, then go make up a different game and make it up with the rules that you want. What are your thoughts on that, Selena?
I agree that definitely, yes. I feel like, I'm all for forward thinking, and I'm all for flexibility.
Amen.
And I'm all for embracing, people regardless of what color they are, what like you said, what side of the bridge they come from. I'm all
Yep.
for that. I'm all for that. You know what I mean?
Amen.
But I feel like there are certain foundational things and principles that we have to be inflexible about. And I feel like sometimes I feel there may be a little bit too much flexibility, and that is really undermining and eating away at the foundation of integrity, if we must say,
Yeah.
the foundation of some of the core principles and values, right, that this nation was built on. I feel like it's eating away at some of even the foundation, the core foundations that families need to stand on. I just feel like it's just eating away and just corroding those principles. And I am like, okay, so, and I feel like there's people in place who are just keep on pushing just a little bit more. Okay, so they got away with this. Okay, we're gonna push the envelope a little bit more. And I'm like, okay, so what's gonna happen just now? What if we keep on giving in and succumbing to the push and that chip away at, right, of the standards of an integrity and values, then just now we're going to be a world without any values. We're going to be a world without no any standards of integrity. We're going to be a world without what is it going to be worth?
I am so aligned with you. The other day, my wife and I took the motorcycle through North Minneapolis. I used to live in that area. It's notorious for its a lot of rough activity, shootings, gangs, and all of that. And we drove down a street that every maybe 4 or 5 blocks had a stop sign. And it was a main street, had parking on either side, and just one lane coming and one lane going. And as we're going down this street, and we hit a stop sign, there's a car behind us that I'm watching, and I'm like, hold on, honey. And this car is not stopping. And it pulls into where there's no parking 30 feet away from the stop sign, pulls in, goes straight through the stop sign, and keeps on going. And does this to 2 or 3 stop signs up ahead. And then pulls over and starts chatting with some people. And we drove past, and it was just a couple of people in a car. And and I spoke later to a friend who is connected to the police station. And he said, oh, this is a common thing in Minneapolis now. I went, what? Oh, yeah. You come up to a stop sign, if you're on one of what's called the side road that's not the main road, even if it's a 4-way stop, pretend that they have a yield sign, because they do not stop anymore. They just go through. And they expect, if you're at that stop sign, they have an expectation that you will not move into the intersection in front of them. And I went, so is this one of those, are you joking? Is this one of those jokes where, if the stop sign has a white rim around it, you don't have to stop? and, and, and he laughed and he said, no, this is where our society in this area, in this neck of the woods, that is the way they treat the law. I said, well, what if they're driving on the cross street? Will they stop at the stop sign? No, they will slow down, though, because they know there might be one of themselves driving the main road with the stop sign. I said, do they do this at stoplights? Oh, yeah. I'm like, wow. Okay, then. I guess. And I said, do the police do anything? Nope. I said, well, why not? Because most of those cars have weapons in them. And the guys inside them have those weapons. And if a policeman would have stopped them, they would just shoot the policeman and move on. Well, what about their license plate and all that? Oh, those license plates aren't attached to that car. Oh, okay. And that is how commonplace that is. And Selena, I'm shocked. I mean, not that I have a halo by any means when it comes to driving. I mean, I'm doing 80 and a 65 or 70 all the time. I'm, definitely will pass on the inside or the outside, doesn't matter, because Minnesota lets you get away with it. Then I'm going to, there's no law against it. Then I will use that to get past traffic. So I have no essence that I have a halo around it. I do have what I would call common sense about a stop sign. And to me, common sense has been thrown out the window. And when you bring it up, they look at you like, well, they should know to stop for me and watch for me, because if I'm there, I'm coming through that stop sign. Do you have any examples like that, Selena?
Well, but let me share with you, right? So I live in Baltimore, Maryland. And Baltimore, Maryland can be a very interesting city because it is truly, you see a melting pot of the very affluent, and then you see on the flip side of the coin, you can see, I mean, things that you feel like you are in a twilight zone and you just went to the other side, right? It's probably, you went to the other side in the sense that the space you can be in, you feel like you're still in the 80s. So it's almost like this one group of people who are very learned, very affluent, right? And well traveled. And then there's another group who all they've known for the last 100 years is these 3 blocks. And they're quite contented with telling you that, right?
Yep.
So with that being said, you have polar opposite in terms of mindset, thinking, the entire nine. So I say all of that to say, Coach Les, and where I live in Baltimore now, it's kind of like right on the cusp of those two worlds. So I get to say, I say reality TV ain't got nothing on what I see daily. Okay? Because at any given day, you can see on one end, you have exactly that happening, where there will be maybe 100 plus dirt bikes just come riding through the streets, making loud noise. And this can be any time of the day. It can be early in the morning, it can be noon, and that's it. And then they actually gesture the cars that's on the street. So let's say, for instance, they don't stop at a stop sign, they go right through. And then if the car that's at the intersection, maybe, they were going through, they would all stop and more or less block the car. Like, okay, so what you gonna do? Is all of us, right? And I have seen this played out, and I'm like, why are they allowing them to get away with this? Why? And then on the other side of that, you're saying, what are in the minds? And a lot of them, of course, the youths, right? But you're like, what is in the mind of these youths that you would even feel that it's okay to just disrupt a whole neighborhood in this uproar of noise, and then gesture and challenge the cars that's on the road? And it's just beyond me. It is just beyond me. But once again, like you said, the cops don't really do anything about it because they're like, listen, we don't know what they may be carrying as a gang of them against maybe one of us or two cop cars. So they leave them and allow them to get away with it. And I'm like, okay, why you can't go meet these kids at their home when it's just 1 or 2 of them? even if you can't deal with it, all of them at that time. Why? They're doing it, so I'm pretty sure that they know who are these kids that's doing it on a consistent basis. So I don't know, Coach Les. I don't know. I am yet to understand it, but I feel that it's rooted in from a very selfish place. A very selfish place, because it's not sending the message that you are conscientious of how things are affecting your fellow human being, your fellow neighbor. You know, it's not that level of conscientiousness and self-awareness is non-existent. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it, and my crew is going to come along with me, and we all going to do it. And that is very disheartening. So I yield my mic.
Thank you, Selena. And welcome to the stage, Joey, and welcome, Pal. We are talking about integrity. And today the question we're looking at right now, tell me about a time your integrity was challenged. And here's one of the examples and how you solved it. And then we got off on a little bit of a tangent about the integrity of society and some of the areas, as you just heard, of what's going on. So inside of that conversation, I would love to get your feedback on a time your integrity was challenged and how did you solve it. So with that, Brother Joey.
I'm gonna pass the mic to Pal for half a second.
All right, Pal, welcome. Good to see you, sir.
Ryan Shine, Coach Les, Joey, and Sulina. Yeah. Oh, I heard you talking about the people run over the stop sign and all. I've seen it all the time, Coach Les. I have I don't have an issue for that because I'm always obey the law. But I do speeding a lot, in the morning when I go to work. You know what I do, right? I deliver the package for FedEx.
Yes.
But I see anytime people break the law, but how I solve the problem, I do what I do, first class, because you cannot stop the other people's problem. You have to stop your own first of all, right? And then you have to be the person to follow the rules, and your life will be easy. I don't have much to say, Coach Glass. It's very hot in Texas. You know that? 3 digits. We got like 105 right now. Yep. Mucho caliente. So hot. So I have to drink a lot of water and stay dehydrated. I drink a lot of, like electrolytes. So keep me hydrated. So I'm good. Yep. Definitely. Thank you so much for the stage. And I'm going to go back running and I'm listening. Back to you, Coach.
Awesome, pal. Thank you so much. And with that, back to you, Joey. Brother Joey, are you there? All right. Well, we'll come back. With that, we're going to move into another conversation and another question. How have you dealt with failure in the past? And for me, I would say the number one place for me in the world of failure would be to look at the partnership that I had for 3 years that failed. I was booted out of the partnership. I had 49%. I was booted out by the partner that had 51%. And I literally in that moment lost all of the money I had invested in the company. All of the credit card debt was put on my shoulders because it was all the credit cards were all in my name. And she chose to say goodbye and no, I'm not paying that back. And I walked away going, now what? And I took the high road, went to one of my clients who's an attorney organization, shared with them, and they took my case on with payment in the effect that they won the lawsuit. They would get paid. I would cover their costs out of whatever I won back. And as it turned out, over the space of 3 years or 2 years for the chase, I had a lot of emotion to deal with. They were my family that did this, and I didn't know what to do. And I will say this, I actually ran away. I got on a plane with luggage and went to visit my mother in England and to vacation and get away. And it took me a long time to get over that failure. And what I came away with was an incredible ability to be in an understanding of what it was to be committed to someone's greatness, regardless of the cost. And when we went to court and we did finally win, the attorney's fees were close to, well, they were 6 figures. So it was it really opened up a place for me. And now I look at it and I go, okay, I just got a PhD in business 101 to 109. And I learned all of the things to be responsible for in communication, with agreements, in paperwork, with agreements face to face, recording them, and creating a future. And I'm excited because it gave me such a powerful place to stand in integrity and to learn to see where my integrity went out, where I lost integrity, and how I didn't stand up for what I knew was the right move in the moment. And I knew it. So I'd love to hear, how have you dealt with failure in the past, Sulina?
You know, Coach Les, I can't always say that I was at this place, but I can say now that I am because of failures that I have experienced in the past. But I actually look at them as teachers that has showed up in my life to provide me a lesson or to strengthen a muscle that was underdeveloped. And I think because of now looking at them through those lenses, I don't stay in that place of defeat or feeling deflated or anything but just for a moment. So actually, even to the point that now I've become so self-aware that I can identify certain things long before it even comes my way. And then even if I do get into a situation and I realize that it's only a matter of time before this train is going off the track, I am with pom-poms on saying run off the track as quick as possible because we need to get through this failure to move on. And I take my lessons, and like a good clock, I keep on ticking. So that's my contribution.
Amen, amen, amen. I love it. It's a beautiful contribution, and thank you so much for sharing that. Brother Joey, are you there? I think he went into the pizza joint, so we'll have to wait for him to come out. Pal, go for it.
Yeah, I remember on my marriage failed. I learned a lot from it. You gotta move forward. Never give up. That's all I can tell you. I mean, I literally almost go to the prison for fraudulent marriage, and I fight a battle, and I got out of it, but it cost tremendous. That's a life. That's a lesson in life. Never lie. So if you're not aligned with your integrity, that's what costs you, and you're gonna take responsibility of what the cause is and the consequence you're gonna face. So that's the lesson I learned. Yeah, Coach Lance, I don't have much to share, but I gotta get going. But I love the topic today. Thank you, Coach Lance.
Thank you, pal. Thank you for listening. I do know that you're in and out, and I appreciate any time that you can share. So thank you for doing that. And we're going to go to the next one.
Let me contribute as well, if you don't mind.
Oh, of course.
So
Go for it.
look, another thing that I love doing is at the end, when I can sit back, right? So normally when I've experienced a failure, I would take some time for introspection, but not for introspection in terms of, like you said, from that deflated or defeated place, but more so to really sit with myself, sit with God, sit with the Holy Spirit and say, reveal to me, where is my responsibility in this going south? And even if it is that I can only take 1% responsibility in that failure, what I strive to do is take 100% ownership of that 1%. And then saying, God, how can I do differently going forward? The lesson is learned. I thank you for the lesson and I embrace it. And then I say, how can I do differently going forward? Because a lot of times when failure happens, we kind of want to point the finger, right? And of course, we want to blame every other situation, person, circumstances. But I think when you approach it from the place of, what is my responsibility in this? And then how can I show up differently if this same scenario was to happen, or the same situation? How can I show up differently based on the ownership that I take in this situation and based on how this has allowed me to grow so I can do differently going forward? That's my contribution.
I love it, Selena. Thank you so much. And I think that's the way, what you just shared is the way to use all what I call breakdowns as part of our training and development. And I love that. So thank you so much, Selena. And, as we go to wrap up, I just want to check in here. Yep, Joey said he'd be right back. Joey, are you back? All right. Well, there's a couple things that I want to just share on a fun note to close the room. As we're coming up on the hour here, and integrity is so personal. It's personal, and I say that from an aspect of we have so many things that impact how our integrity is built, designed, and leveled up as we go through society. As we spoke about before, as I spoke about the police in Minneapolis and these drivers, not stopping at stop signs, and I look and I think, wow, what are the young kids that are watching this, that are growing up with this, that are absorbing? Well, clearly the north and south streets you don't have to stop for stop signs, and they're not aware enough when they first start driving to be able to react, maybe like some of these other people that are older that are doing this, and so they instantly end up in an accident. And I think that's the piece for me that's the saddest in all of this, is that inability to look at the impact of your actions in the ripple effect. And we started the show with me sharing about an example where my integrity was challenged and how I solved it, and it came from a huge breakdown. And I look at the opportunity that made itself available for me and I now can look back and thank God for it. And I didn't think that would ever happen. And I thank God for it because the difference that it made for me as a business coach, now calling myself an integrity coach, to be able to go and look at the businesses that I work with now or future businesses and be able to dissect what they're dealing with, and to be able to see some of these things that happen before they happen and impact them, coach them to take ownership in these particular areas. For that, I'm super excited. And I continue now to look and see, how do I share this? How do I bring this to community? How do I bring this to Clubhouse or to social media so that I can make a difference in such a way that it's super impactful and people see that integrity is nothing but a game to have a wheel that works, and that it's not about being emotional about it or shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Instead, to see it as an opportunity to create a new level. And that, to me, is where the power comes. And Joey, I saw you on the phone. Are you available? Did you want to share anything? All right. Well, with that, Selena, any closing notes for you?
sure, I can contribute. So the closing note for me was when you said, the youths and them, the young ones looking on, right? And what example is it providing? But the interesting thing is, you looked at it through the lens of them not having necessarily the skill set or the experience, right? To
Yep.
have that reflex to respond as an older, more mature driver. But for me, it was more so how like you said, the ripple effect. What other areas of their life are they going to think that it's okay to just violate the other person's rights and go through? How that can have a carryover, just experiencing that one thing, how that can pretty much have a carryover to so many other areas of their life. So it's interesting how, I don't remember who said it, but the way that we do one thing is how we do all things.
Amen.
Yes. So we always got to be mindful in terms of examining and holding ourselves accountable and having people in our lives who hold us accountable to keep implement and then keep those standards of integrity in every single aspect of our lives. So whether it's driving, whether it's relationally, whether it's spiritually, whether it's financially, right? So in all areas, because a lot of times how we do things in one area can definitely have that carryover to other areas.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That's my contribution.
Well, thank you, Selena. And with that, I'm going to do my fun little close down here.
Coaching with Les has doubled my practice.
We've increased our sales by about 33%, of blowing all of our goals out of the water.
In my first 6 months, I actually grew my business with his help over 500%. Literally 500%.
Les Hill is the type of person that invests back in you and back into your company. So if you're looking for a business coach with integrity, choose Les Hill.